Hello, beautiful visionaries. This is Lorna Liana, and today I am so excited to bring to you Mallku Aribalo. Mallku has been studying for many years the power places of the Andes. The Andean architects were not only the builders of incredible structures, but also the masters of power lines, ley lines known in Western geomancy. He has made and uncovered significant discoveries about these geomagnetic forces and will share with us their relevance to Andean spiritual knowledge in this session about the Andean master path and the wisdom of the ancestors. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mallku.
Thank you, Lorna, for the invitation and sending the blessing from the Andes to all of you. And I am open to share the Andean wisdom. And I wish that we will be inspired and touch many souls in the planet. So I am open to share with you whatever point in relation to shamanism and the Andes, the Andean history, and all of that.
Thank you so much. So I'm curious to know more about your journey. Can you share with us more about who you are and the work that you do in the world?
Yes. Since I was a child, I had a connection with, of course, Pachamama, with the mountains where I was living, and I felt since little that we were not alone, that it was another reality, another parallel world, that we could be part of this. And of course, as I was growing, the connection with the history of my ancestors, that gave me an incredible vision, that mastery was part of our journey, and sooner or later we needed to discover. And then I connected deeply with the ancient wisdom from my ancestors, especially to understand how my ancestors, they were creating their temples, their observatories, their cities. And the conclusion was that if we do not maintain harmony with earth and heaven, it will be difficult really to understand who we are. Then my work was dedicated since very early in my life to try to connect deeply with my ancestors, the ancient history, and also how to help a human being to evolve. And right now, I am sharing the wisdom through books, through special journeys, through ceremonies, and many ways. So right now is the time to help people to follow human awareness, because it's the time to preserve our planet. Then it will be many subjects to talk, and then I am open to point to the subjects that are important in this event that you are putting together with many other beautiful beings to help many souls in the planet.
So I'm really curious to know about these ley lines in the Andes. So I had spent probably about 2 months living in Cusco and exploring the Sacred Valley in the early 90s. And I know that so much has changed right now, but one of the things that really struck me was the depth of knowledge that the Incas had, especially around architecture and astronomy, it seemed. Some of the places that they created had very specific alignment with celestial movements. And I felt that the energies of these places were so incredible. So I'd love to discover more about what you have learned in your work and how it relates to Andean spiritual knowledge and what we in modern industrialized society can discover in order to apply to our own lives.
Sure. Cusco was the capital of this Andean society. In the last period, of course, of the evolution of the different societies in the Andes. So since from Cusco, they established an amazing connection with other places, and in order to maintain the energy, they were forced to connect with the arrival of solstices and equinoxes, and all their temples, palaces, and cities, and communities. They wanted to maintain an alignment with those important moments that for the planet are impacting cosmically. So far, Cusco, the masters decided to be in the shape of the puma, of the cougar. But it was not just a simple shape. If not, the puma will be awakening little by little as the June solstice was arriving. and the phenomenon was totally forgotten in the history, and it's being just recently that I discovered that in the 90s. And I am sharing one of my books, The Awakening of the Puma, about these alignments. So our ancestors didn't want to be in a simple position in relation to Earth, because as soon as they will advance more, knowing the mechanics, the physics, the secrets of the planet, and the connection with heaven, they will assure that their life will be much more complete. Since we're not isolated, we're not living in an island, we are global people, and our ancestors, they understood. They were not alone in this journey, and they wanted to be sure to transmit this wisdom to their descendants. This is why Cusco, even now, after a few centuries, that the Inca leaders, they just left the direction, the Cusco city still preserves some of the distribution in its streets about these alignments. And if we try to replicate all this in the Sacred Valley, we are also finding that the different communities created by the Incas are following directions, are having special shapes, following sacred geometry. So everywhere we are finding this intentional work that our ancestors did, because they wanted to assure to everybody to receive a cosmic impact. Since everybody is connected, the result will be better. And this is the main purpose of the mastery, to facilitate the work for many. This is why right now also we have important people in the planet that are trying to help. So that will be their mission. Then it will be very good for you to return. You will be surprised for what we discovered since the 90s. So you were just in the transition. Right now in the 90s and this new century, there is a lot of information that was revealed, and I was participating, discovering many of the astronomical phenomena and how these positions were connected with temples. And this is why right now we have beautiful answers and connections in Machu Picchu, for example, that nothing was written about, but now we have a lot of information because all the studies we did.
I cannot wait to go back to Peru. I've been to Peru 3 times and I just love the country. It's so fascinating to me. I'm curious to know if you know anything, if you know much at all about the Nazca lines. I've always been intrigued by them. I'm sure many people have been. And of course, there's a lot of theories about how the Nazca lines were created because people were wanting to communicate with extraterrestrial beings. So I don't know much about what we know historically or archaeologically, and would love to have you share with us what you might know.
Sure. The Nazca lines were created by the Nazca people on the desert, a few hours traveling from Lima to the south of Lima on the desert. But for centuries, people didn't have an idea what it was. And even now, there are doubts about that for people that they are having just simple information. But all that is explainable. The lines were designed on the desert, and how to create the lines and the drawings and the different geometries, that's not difficult because artists following proportions, they could really make the designing. The problem is not how to create the designs. The point here is why you are doing those designs if you're not going to see. Because the desert is very much flat, and the mountains, the near mountains are so far that even if you are in the near mountains in the area, you will not see. Then we need to understand something else from our ancestors. In the beginning, people, they thought that those lines that looked like channels were channels, really to irrigate the area. But it was a confusing system because sometimes these kind of channels were arriving to the same point, so a nonsense, because people couldn't see. That was later that some of the expeditions revealed that some of the lines were connected with the moment of the sun was setting, for example, in June solstice. And then that was giving already an idea about the meaning of the place. And after many years of study, of course, the Nazca lines became the biggest astronomic book made on the desert, because many lines will be pointing to important mountains, other lines to important positions related to solstices and equinoxes. And now, okay, if those lines are projecting to important moments of cosmic events, now let's ask why you are going to do something like that if you're not going to see. So the point here is that we need to be much open in relation to the ancient technologies, because people, they think that we are the only society, the modern society, that we use technology. But that's wrong. Our ancestors also, they had some kind of technology, not the same as we have now. But in the past, people in a mechanic way, they could elevate a few meters and or using the currents of the wind and all that with mechanic ways to really observe down in relative distances, and like that controlling about what they were creating. But the theory that this was the place created by ancestors just to define the positions where especially UFOs will be landing, that's not really in that purpose, because this is the desert. And for example, if you and me and others, we are in the desert just there, and we start walking for 200 meters or half a mile in one line, and we do return, we will leave our prints there on the ground, because in that area it doesn't rain. And the dust comes, brings the wind, brings the dust, but again the wind is taking away. So, which means that the lines that we can make ourselves are not going to be destroyed, because the conditions of the area are easy to be maintained, and since it's not raining, those are not disappearing. Then we don't need to go far away, and this is not avoiding the existence of extraterrestrial life, for sure. We cannot pretend to be the only ones in the universe. There are many other intelligences in the universe, but here the point is that we don't need for them to come here to say exactly what we have to do, because we have a beautiful and perfect brain, and we're not using all our capabilities. Right now, we're probably reaching to 15% of human brain capabilities. The last century studies were showing that human being was using about 10% of brain capabilities. So let's give a little more credit to human being, because there is the 80, 85%, 90% of brain capabilities not used yet. If we will be advancing a little more, all the answers will be there. Then I am not saying that our brothers and sisters with other cosmic life doesn't exist. No, for sure those exist, but we don't need them to be doing our life. Okay, then we need to be clear in that.
So it's clear that the Nazca people and the Incas had some kind of ancient technology that we do not understand because of the complexity of the structures that they left behind and what it really took to appreciate these structures, understanding their relationship with celestial movements, with the seasons, and also just the fact that you can only see them if you're, in the case of the Nazca lines, you can only see them if you are, in the air. So I'm curious to know what other wisdom did the Incas have that you think would really be relevant for us in this complicated modern era?
Probably the most interesting part in relation to a cosmic approach is the real awareness about the solstice, equinoxes, passage of the sun by the zenith, full moon events, and all that. Something that we as society we lost. Mm-hmm. Of course that when we want to relate to solstices and equinoxes, some people in societies, they are saying, oh, it's arriving summer, let's be happy. It's arriving winter, let's be sad. It's arriving autumn, so let's be just relaxed. Or people, they are having a kind of social reaction because it's being proposed to be happy when it's summer, for example. So people, they forgot totally about the cosmic connection during those days. And our ancestors, they wanted to prepare human being for a full awareness as important moments cosmically it could affect the planet, like the arrival of a solstice. This is why many temples, palaces, were aligned to just sunrise, sun setting. And like that, people, they could confirm themselves that they were not alone. And if we are in the right place, we are in the right moment, with the right people, in an amazing center, for sure that the energy will multiply and will accelerate your vibration, and you will become an initiator cosmically by the same phenomena that is produced. So this kind of beautiful connection with earth and heaven, societies, they lost very much. And right now we are trying to group and to trying to do different kind of ways to be happy or to accelerate our vibration, to understand who we are. So our ancestors, they were having all this daily, continuously. It was not an effort for them to try to understand who they were. That was a natural thing. And probably this is something that we have to regain and return. And for that, your event is important because we will share something deep in relation to the ancient wisdom. Not only the legend, the mythology, because most of the temples are still alive. And so people, they could experiment right now in those places. And in question of the ancient architecture, it's difficult for the Western mind to understand because right now we have patterns, we have programations, and our ancestors, they were following the natural order. This is why the ancient architecture is organic architecture. And organic architecture means that the small and the big are important and can be connected. So we don't need to separate. This is why when you were in Sacsayhuaman or you were in Machu Picchu, for sure that you could see that the structures are small or big, but all together are making a unity. Right now, we are trying to condition in nature how to have our lives. Our ancestors, they didn't condition, they were part of that. So there are simple technologies that we have to return to just give some credit and probably to transform our reality. And respecting also to nature in the way that how you are doing your life, the respect to yourself, the respect to the environment, the respect to the animals. And in that part, societies, they forgot very much how to be in harmony with nature.
So would it be as simple as being aware of the solstices and equinoxes, or, you know, the phases of the lunar cycle, and doing ritual or prayer or some type of ceremonial work in alignment with those events?
This is an important aspect. The other one, of course, is how healthy you are, how in harmony you are physically, emotionally, and in your spirit. So human being is a complex being. It's not only one aspect. It's all together. It's not enough just to be doing ceremony because supposedly you can do whatever you want during your day and early in the morning do your ceremony and supposedly that this is changing your reality, or doing your ceremony at night. No, you have to be a holistic being. So you have to integrate how much you care about yourself in all your energies, how much you care about the planet, because we are not isolated anymore. When I was living in my tree, I thought that I could be happy. But after my personal experience, I understood that we are all connected. And since I am a social being, I need to return to the society to do my job, to do my mission, because we are not isolated. And our ancestors, they proved that. They wanted to integrate everybody. They wanted to integrate all kingdoms, animals, nature, humans, and everything. So it's much more than just trying to focus in solstices and equinoxes or the lunar cycles. And it's much deeper than that. And the use, of course, of power plants is part of this. The personal practice, like your physical dynamics, how you are in a relationship, how you become a father, a mother, or how, when you are a child, how much you are connected, etc. It's so complex. It's not only one aspect. People here, they are coming and say, oh, I am going to Peru because I am going to be during 2 weeks doing a few shots of ayahuasca, and they think that a few shots of ayahuasca, they are just fixing their lives. And it's not that. Human being is much more complex than that. And in most of cases, if we do not integrate earth and heaven, we are going to pay the price. And for me, it's very clear. This is why I am following the vegan practice, not because somebody told me about this, because that was my nature. Since child, I understood that, and I am trying to share this with people, because we are affecting the planet radically, how we treat the animals, how we treat the environment. So it's not only one aspect. Some people, they are pretending that, oh, I am so bad, but I am having a shot of something, and then magically everything is going to change or disappear. No, we have to work deeply in ourselves.
I completely agree. Ayahuasca is not a magic bullet. Going to ceremony is not going to resolve your issues. It might help you see your issues, but then the work really begins after the ceremony when you integrate the wisdom of the master plant knowledge that you received during that ritual. So I want to ask you, Mallku, this work with power plants, is this something that goes back for thousands of years in Andean culture? Is this something that the ancient Incans did, or some of the other peoples? I don't know anything about this, and there's a lot of theories floating around. For example, this theory that the psychoactive toad, Bufo alvarius, was actually used by the Mayans because there are images of the toads in the temple frescoes, but then there's a question of whether it's the same species of toad or not. So I'm curious to know, what do we know about the ancient use of power plants?
Perfectly. That's correct. That ancestors, they knew about the presence and the use of magic elements from Pachamama. And Pachamama, it's our Mother Earth. And with all her love, Pachamama offered to the entire planet magic elements, magic plants. And the use of a magic plant was to help us to remember how beautiful we are, how divine we are. This is why all over the planet you are finding magic plants. In the Middle East, in Africa, in North Hemisphere, and etc., and of course in the Andes as well. The indigenous people in United States, what's actually United States. So the use of all the magic plants were part of human history, and that's for millennia, no doubts of that. And in the Andes, of course, we have many representations in potteries, in textiles, in artifacts, showing the use of different magic elements. But in question of society, probably the most common power plant that we are finding is the cactus, which is huachuma. But the use was not like we are doing now. In the last decade, people, they've been drinking ayahuasca more than the entire history of the ayahuasca in the planet. And this is because came a new fashion in the planet. And right now, ayahuasca is imposing everywhere in the planet. Like that, they are forgetting the beautiful use of mushrooms probably in North Europe and in some parts of the territory in the United States. So people, they are forgetting right now iboga in Africa and other magic elements somewhere else. The use of peyote is only select in the United States, and right now you have ayahuasca in LA, you have in New York, you have in London, you have in Hong Kong. So right now is the use of that. And here in Cusco, people, they are drinking ayahuasca every day. In the Second Valley, every day. So the use right now of power plants, in the case of ayahuasca, is taking the planet. And the result of people drinking ayahuasca is not as could be, or as people they would like to be, saying like that, wow, I fixed my life. And as you said, it's not just enough that. Because this kind of placebo, sometimes in question of mysticism, if you are not changing deeply yourself, then it's not going to be working, because you are much more complex than having just a vision, which can help for sure. So the use of power plants in the Andes, that happened. But our ancestors, they've been using in ceremony. They've been using to have an important clarity, vision, or just to heal someone or the community because something was going on. So it was used in ceremonial aspects, not because people don't like the red color and they need to have a shot of ayahuasca. Not because they are having a problem with the mother-in-law. Why this problem happens? They'll give me a shot of ayahuasca. So people, they are really going to the extreme right now, and almost it's like drinking Coca-Cola. So that's not the point. There is something that was misinterpreted, and that's a pity. Anyway, but our ancestors, for sure, they were using. So in the Andes, the presence of huachuma is much more clear than the presence of ayahuasca, for example, because probably this is what they had easy to work in the different pottery from since the Mochica people before the arrival of the Incas, of course, were finding the evidences of that. Then the invitation is be much deeper of an external thing. And this is funny, Paul, and I want to clarify and share with you, because when we are, for example, in Machu Picchu, which is an amazing city, it's a beautiful city, a city that I name it the Crystal City because all the elements that exist there. And when I am teaching in Machu Picchu, many times happen. People, they are saying me, Mallku, wow, this looks beautiful. Everything goes perfect here, but please, where is the healing center? When people they are asking me something like that, what is the healing center here? It's so beautiful, everything, the temples, the observatories, the distribution, the urban majesty of all this city. And people they ask me, Mallku, where is the healing center? When people they are asking me something like that, the answer is, in order to have a healing center, we have to have the sick people. And our ancestors, the masters, they wanted to vision healthy as priority, prevention as priority, and not to do a disorder in your life in order to look for something that can be good for you or not. Then, in that way, power plants are magical plants. In the master vision, a power plant is not a medicine, because a medicine is related to heal somebody who is sick. This is the relation how we introduce. So for us, clearly, a power plant is a magic plant. So our ancestors, they use it sometimes.
What is a traditional huachuma ceremony like? And I ask you this because these days we're seeing a lot of cross-cultural integration around the use of sacred plants, so that there are neo-shamanic expressions of using plants in different ways. So you see this a lot with ayahuasca ceremony, and I would love to understand. I've never really sat in a traditional Andean huachuma ceremony, so I don't know what that's like. So I'd love to hear more about what a traditional ceremony might be like, so that we know what the difference is.
The north of Peru is being recognized as the master area for huachuma. And huachumeros in the north of Peru, they always worked with huachuma at night, overnight, okay? And that's the traditional way how they've been doing. But you have to be receive this information that this nation, this country named Peru, it's a big Catholic country where the 93% is Catholic, according to the last studies. So many of those huachumeros, they've been introducing into their rituals this mixing with Christianity, where you are finding crosses, idols, saints, the invocation to the church, to the mother church and all that, and which involves, of course, all the saints from the church. So this is how the traditional way is working in the north of Peru very much. Okay? So when you ask about traditional way, you have to be careful in the way how society is being interpreting, because supposedly they sold to us the idea that traditional way is the way that is the good way, or the way that supposedly is the right way. So be careful with that, because our ancestors, where I am living, which is Cusco, an amazing thing, and was the capital of the ancient Inca society, my ancestors were not traditional at all. So, if my ancestors, they were not traditional people at all, right now we are trying to introduce in the society, in the intellectual understanding of history, that tradition is trying to justify the history, and it's not like that. Because our ancestors, they were not traditional people. Since our ancestors, they were inviting every year in important events that they were organizing, people from all the Andes, for all of them to bring the best that they had. If something was better of what our ancestors they were practicing, they will stay in order to teach, to make better things of what they had. This was blocking all traditions. This is why when we ask about traditional ways, I explain to you how they do in the north. At night, with a lot of artifacts, a lot of Christianity background and all that. I work with huachuma, starting early in the morning with the sunrise, which means that will be during the day, because I am not afraid of the light. And in question of energies, I understood from Pachamama that we could manage the energies without being conditioning. And people, they love to create conditions. People, they love to be attached to traditions. Sorry to say all that clearly, my ancestors were not traditional at all. The traditions were invented to support a kind of ideas, a kind of current, justifying that somebody, oh, because your father, your grandfather, or somebody else, sorry, it's like saying, if you're a secretary, it was your mother a secretary to justify that you are a good secretary, or if you are a lawyer, it was your father a lawyer to justify that you are a good lawyer. So it's been a manipulation of things. This is why in the jungle as well in Peru, they condition people in the use of, say like that, ayahuasca. You know? And this is being arriving also to the mountains, conditioning the mind of people, how they have to use ayahuasca, for example, a lot of conditions. And that's similar in huachuma, a lot of conditions. So then we have probably to be more open in relation to this. And I notice very much that some people, they are a little scared or they don't have clarity about that. But surely, my ancestors, they were not traditional people at all, and now we are maintaining traditions. That doesn't belong to us in our ancestors' point, but belongs to new people that they are introducing in that way.
This brings up a very important question and theme that we're exploring as well around the topic of cultural appropriation. So one of the things that comes up, especially you see this a lot more in North America, where there are still very strong tensions between the native people and, of course, you know, the American government and white society around, you know, rights and, you know, cultural identity. And one of the most charged topics is the question of cultural appropriation. Now, what you just said about the question of tradition, what does that really mean, and how you are practicing a way that is actually non-traditional, that reminds me of some of the things that I saw when I spent time in Brazil among the indigenous tribes there, where there, for example, the traditional headdress, the feather headdress, actually, you know, crowns your head and the feathers point out. But in the recent years, actually the recent few decades, the shamans especially and the leaders have these big full feather headdresses that kind of drape around alongside your head and, you know, down you know, to your shoulders. And that came about because sometime, I think maybe in the 50s, or whenever black and white television was introduced to the area and they saw spaghetti westerns, they saw the American Indians of the North American West with those big feather headdresses, and they were like, hey, we like that. We're going to do that for our headdresses. And so here we have now this cultural appropriation that had been taken place from the Indians of the South of the culture of the North. And so what we're seeing, especially in the use of sacred plant medicines, is an evolving culture around the practices and use of these medicines, and there is a lot of controversy. There's a lot of fear over cultural appropriation. So I would like to know what your thoughts are, Mallku, around the topic of cultural appropriation, and whether it is inappropriate, for example, for a Westerner, especially somebody who is of Caucasian descent, European descent, a white person who is facilitating ayahuasca or huachuma ceremony, whether they are being guilty of cultural appropriation when this was never a practice of their own ancestors.
This is a very interesting point and conclusion as well, because as I said minutes ago, Pachamama is our beautiful mother that Pachamama offered to all the planet, to the different corners, to the different latitudes and longitudes, magic elements. So magic plants exist all over the planet. Right now there is a new fashion. The new fashion was introduced very much by your nation. US is the nation of just explosion and creation and invention and everything. And ayahuasca became the new product for the planet without respecting what each region has as nature. For example, people, they forgot the use of mushrooms beautifully in North Europe, North America, etc., etc. Some other people, they are forgetting the use of other power plants, magic plants in other latitudes. People, they are not forgetting necessarily, but they are imposing ayahuasca in the areas where peyote was vibrating, and that was the nature of the land to vibrate in that frequency. Here in the Andes, they are introducing ayahuasca in Cusco, and ayahuasca belongs to the jungle. Let's honor each element to where it belongs. If not, it's like saying, oh, listen, we are from the Andes, we are the specialists from the Andes, we are the masters from the Andes. Let's go to Tibet. And we arrive to Tibet, and we're saying to all these monks, the lamas and all that, what's all that? The Om Burbubas Vaha, Tatsaviturvarenyam, what's that? Right now it's time of Pachamama, because we are saying so. We introduce to you coca leaves, coca plant, because this is the master plant. Forget everything that you have over there. So these people are reacting, saying, what's wrong with you? We've been here chanting and invoking and meditating and using our magic for millennia. Well, what's wrong with you? So right now we are interfering culturally and affecting what exists naturally in certain areas. We should restart honoring what Pachamama offered to us. Because if one plant is imposing face to the others, we are forgetting the essential, which is us. We are the essential. And power plants, the main teaching is to help you to remember how beautiful you are, and you have everything within you. And how beautiful you are, that means non-dependency, because if not recognizing your divine being. And we don't need to be drinking huachuma, ayahuasca, every day, every weekend, because all elements are within you, and people, they are abusing. And if I will see the result positively in people, I will say, okay, continue. But sorry, I have a vegan place, a vegan restaurant, and I met many people coming there, and they are coming, and they arrive to our place, and they say, wow, thank you for the beautiful meals that you have here and the environment. Thank you, I was waiting for something like that. I asked to them, why? Where are you coming from? And say, wow, we were for 2 weeks in the rainforest, and we had 10 shots of ayahuasca, because that was the retreat. Or we've been in the Sacred Valley for 10 days, and we had 5 shots of ayahuasca. And when they are saying me that, I'm saying, wow, 5 shots of ayahuasca, 10 shots of ayahuasca. I say, wow, you might be illuminated already. Om Burbubas Vaha. That's and these people, most of them, unfortunately, sorry to say that, more than the 50% of all these people drinking continuously ayahuasca, they carry and they continue in similar problems or deeper problems. If I will see a magic result in the majority, I will say, okay, continue. Sorry to say, I don't see that. Then there is something wrong. How is administrate? How people are forgetting or escaping of their own reality because they think that having the vision, wow, such a vision. So, and people, they are comparing, and that's a pity for this master plan, because people, they are comparing, say, oh, I am in drugs, I am in cocaine, I am in everything. But this was a huge journey, a deep journey. What we are talking about, the way how it's introduced, we see from the Andean master path that there is something wrong. Something is not helping to people as should be, and that's a pity. Then I prefer to honor each magic element in where area belongs. I've been participating in different speeches, in different conferences. Once they invited us in the jungle to be speaking about shamanism and all this. And as I arrived, people, they asked me, Mallku, wow, you are going to be here participating. When is going to be the huachuma ceremony? I said to them, listen, I came here to the jungle to honor grandmother ayahuasca. If you want to have some huachuma with me, I wait for you in the mountains. And people, they were ready for everything. So I see very much how is the misinterpreted things, and that's a pity. This is why we need to create a deep awareness in people. And we cannot forget everything. You are the beautiful being. Power plants are teaching you or help you to remember how beautiful you are. And then you don't need to be dependent of that. When you connect, you will go deep and deeper and deeper.
So how can Westerners who work with sacred power plants, especially Western facilitators, be able to work with these sacred plants and also be in right relations to the culture that were the original wisdom holders of working with these plants?
There is a lot of competition now. You know, the big competition happens in the jungle, in the valley. That's amazing. Recently, a person from the jungle who provides ayahuasca service has been here in the area of Cusco. He was telling me it's too much competition here. That's amazing. So right now it's who is doing best or not. That's beyond. So Westerns, first, we have to focus. In shamanism, there are two things that practitioners, students, leaders, masters, they have to do at least two things. One is to have a ceremonial bath in the pristine waters that are coming from earth, from the mountains, in a magic places, power places. And for sure here in the Andes we have Lake Titicaca, which is the master, beautiful place. And most of cases it's just freezing water. It's just cold water. So, but that will be your personal approach for a personal bath. You know? And the second practice that people, they can do as being involved with the energy of the planet, it's about the use at least once in life to try a power plant. Because that will show the magic. But anyway, if you didn't have the time because that was a kind of new thing in your life and then you enjoy it or not, or you would like to learn a little more, have a second time, have a third time, have 5 times if you didn't have the time to really understand, and have 10 times really to offer yourself the chance to say, wow, now I understood and what I have to do. But if after 10 times you didn't get, probably after 100 times you're not going to get. After 1,000 times, surely you're not going to receive what supposedly you were expecting to. This is why the use of power plant at least once in life is important, yes. But the condition, if the conditions are there. But if after 1,000 times you are not evolving really, why you continue using? You know? Au contraire, you are creating a situation, a confrontation that is not needed because you're not giving priority to yourself. Then honor yourself. And as you honor yourself, the master plans will be manifest deeply and say, wow, that resonates with me. The memories are coming to me. And do it again if you want, but with full conscious. not because it's the new fashion. People, they are taking, how many times you drank? Who is the best Irish carol? And in United States, it happens very much every week. Then we honor yourself. You are a beautiful beings, and power plants needs to reflect the main teaching in your life. If you are alone, be beautiful alone. But if when you are beautiful alone, there is a big risk, because you will be attracting many, and it will be up to you to decide to continue to be alone. But with all the chances that you are having, because you are beautiful alone, you will be attracting many, and very sure that you will be not anymore alone, and you will have your partner, whoever, girl or man, whoever, but you will be with somebody. And so the base of society is integration in family. Doesn't need to be, husband and wife, but need to be a beautiful relation in human life. This is how power plants are going to be deep accepted, and not in a disorder. And in the disorder, many of these people continues to be isolated, continues to be alone and suffering and pretending to justify their loneliness because at the use of a power plant. Then I see dramatically how people, they are using and abusing. And I would suggest to honor yourself much more.
Thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom and information. We're coming to the end of our session, and I want to conclude with asking you to share what the Andean Master Path is and how this path of wisdom might help us become visionary leaders that we're meant to be, fulfilling our soul's purpose and in service to the highest good.
Sure. The Andean Master Path is a unique vision of integration of all elements. We cannot separate our heart and our brain. If we separate, we pay the price. We cannot pretend to be isolated, that we are just a Russia, because we are cosmic beings as well. Our ancestors had that clear. And in order to advance in this proposal of the Andean Master Path, we have to be humans recognizing what we really need. And what we need to have a life with abundance. We need to learn to honor our time, because our life is short. Then we have to organize our lives in order to produce, to create, to invent, to work, to love, to be loved, to enjoy, etc. You have to be responsible with your life. And the most important, you have to be comfortable. Being comfortable means that we don't need to be fighting for, pretending to say, oh, the material world is not needed and is bad. Not, absolutely not. If you will go to Machu Picchu, you will encounter a master city with an amazing structures, plazas, terraces, fountains, observatories, temples, places where people they could gather, balconies where people they could sit to enjoy. So there is nothing wrong in being comfortable. And it's being implanted in the memory of people, in the subconscious, that in order to reach spirituality, you have to be miserable, poor, or suffering, or confronting, or which is totally against what our ancestors vision. Our ancestors proposed it. You have to be comfortable in life. And if there is some problems, fix it. There is something that's not working, call the specialist. Call for help. The universe will send you some help. So I have that clearly when I go to Machu Picchu, when I go to the different sanctuaries in the Andes, Ollantaytambo, Pisac, Chinchero, Moray, Rachi, etc., or the ancient city of Cusco. Then I invite you to really learn more about how to unite your heart with your brain, loving yourself, which is the big step in life. This will open the doors. Continue respecting environment, respect the animals. The animals will appreciate, really, and will be part of the vision of peace in the planet. We cannot pretend to have peace if we continue abusing of the animals. The animals depend on us. We have to be more humans in relation to the planet. So the Andean Master Path was integrating all the elements. And if you are connected somewhere to these amazing mountains, we are happy to receive you, to share with you many more visions, teachings, journeys, ceremonies, and if the occasion comes, a huachuma connection. We don't do huachuma every day, not even every weekend, sometimes not even every month, only when special people are coming. So send to you the light and love from the Andes.
Thank you so much for that, Mallku. I would like to ask about the free gift that you have for our audience.
Sure. I am happy as well to share and to offer as a gift contribution for the people who will be connected some of my books, and the links probably are going to appear in the page and in the interview or all the connections. And also we want to offer, if any is coming to the Andes, for 2 people to stay 2 nights in our retreat center, which is the Pachacama retreat in Cusco, and sharing some vegan meals and other teachings, and then be connected. And we appreciate this important event that you are introducing to this global society, and we are happy to be with you in this event.
Thank you so much. How can people best stay in touch with you?
One of our websites is huachuma.net. The other of our websites is pachacama.me. And then people, they can find information in our websites. Or if not, you put Mallku, and Mallku will show you as well my personal connection and also to our work.
Okay, I'll be sure to put all the links mentioned on the webpage below this video. All right, thank you so much, Mallku. I want to wish you a beautiful rest of your day in Peru, and really looking forward to meeting you in person one day.
Thank you very much, Lorna.